is Professor Rita Shia Guffa Chair in English at Rice University in Texas. They are extremely well known for their literature, more than 20 books, nearly 300 articles, if I counted right, and will right now talk to us about hell on earth. Thank you so much for being with us today. Do you hear us? Timothy,
yes.
Do you hear us?
Hello.
Great. Wonderful. So we're really happy to hear your talk. Thank you. Hello?
Have you watched my talk yet?
There's an interesting moment here.
Hi, Timothy. We didn't want to watch the video before. We just want to hear you speak, and then that we all speak together a little bit. We didn't want to, and then we can have that tape that you sent to keep talking, to keep looking at what you had said. But we haven't introduced it with a video.
Do you want to watch it first and then we'll talk?
Would you like us to watch it first, or would you like to just speak? Would you like us to watch the video first and then we speak together?
Yeah, my understanding was that we would do the Q&A after you guys watched my talk.
Okay, we'll do it that way then. Okay. Can we cue the video and then we keep Timothy on? Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm deeply touched to be part of this. And in particular, you know, I was a historian when I came into the academy studying English literature from a historical point of view. And I gradually moved towards working with what is called theory of philosophy. I used a lot of theory, literary theory, but my emphasis was on history. And so, and I don't feel as if I've abandoned it. I just feel as if I've had to become more explicit about why I'm thinking and why I'm studying things. And so in a funny way, I feel like what I'm writing always is the introduction to the introduction to the introduction to the history, rather than, you know, abandoning the history. I'm working with it. And I think history is clearly important from the point of view of the future, funnily enough. I mean, I think we study history profoundly in order to figure out how to do new things. If you want the future to be different from the past, then you have to know what the past is. And you know that the past sucked, right? Like, here's a quick check. Look around you. Can you see anything that isn't so great? Well, good. That means the past wasn't so great, which means you might want to make the future different from the past. And that's my thought about it, right? The thing also about the past is that it's now, right? It's happening now. Let me give you a huge example of a historical event, right? Take human beings out of history. Let's just assume history simply means the description and exploration of things that happened. In which case, I really like the phrase natural history, because it has to do, you know, with all life forms. And this funny concept that we have, it's an imperialistic racist concept, right, called prehistory, that there were things that human beings did or even do that are not properly or fully or actually historical. Hegel's philosophy of history is all about this, right? And it's a justification for imperialism, because it's basically saying, you know, some parts of the world don't have enough history, or they have the wrong kind of history, so we should force them to have the right kind of history, which is obviously the white guy kind of history. Yeah. The other interesting thing, of course, is that an event is a kind of explosion, right? That's why it's happening now. You know, like the biggest example of it I'm going to give you, the Big Bang. It's a historical event. Maybe it's the historical event. And if you look around you again, everything you can see is really just the wavefront of the Big Bang from a certain point of view, right? But it's also lots of other things. And this is the other fun thing about history, that actually, you know, things can have many origins. You know, the Anthropocene is a great example because it's so big and it's everywhere. It had many, many origins, maybe 4 or 5 really strong ones. The most recent one is called the Golden Spike. It's this huge, you know, change in Earth systems data from 1945. That's an origin of its kind, called the Great Acceleration, the beginning of the Great Acceleration, right? The massive, you know, massively greater use of fossil fuels and so on, right? Then there's the early one, which is called civilization in 10,000 BCE, settling down, planning, farming, a certain kind of farming, right? And a certain kind of society based on a certain kind of farming, and a kind of farmer-centric way of doing things, which is very much actually an algorithmical, computational way of doing things, AKA repeating the past, right? That's what a recipe is, right? You take an egg, boil the water, put the egg in the water, wait maybe 4 minutes, you take it out, it's a boiled egg. That's a recipe. And a recipe is by definition based on the past. So if you keep repeating a recipe, you're repeating the past. Now, the trouble with capitalism is that it's very algorithmic, and it's a recipe that isn't trying to become more and more efficiently what it does. And what does it do? It extracts life, right? It extracts life from the biosphere, mostly by enslaving it. You know, all life forms apart from humans are not paid for their work. And the humans, most humans who are paid less than they should be paid, right? That's like the definition of modern capitalism, is that you have to sell your labor cheaper than it's supposed to be. All the other products are rationally priced, except they're not, because they don't factor in enough the environmental costs, right? But there's this kind of equality about the prices, but the human being prices themselves a little bit too cheap. And then, so that's one other origin of the Anthropocene, is industrial capitalism, beginning in 1784 with the patenting of the steam engine by James Watt, and Karl Marx and also Paul Crutzen, the inventor of the word Anthropocene, both think that 1784 is a crucial moment there. But why? Why did that happen? Well, it happened because of slavery, aka settler colonialism. I think for me, this is the most important origin point of the Anthropocene, right? When Europeans sent many different life forms, including other human beings, all around the world and mixed everything up. And I mean, I know I live in a place that is basically subtropical savanna, Houston, Texas. The tropics are 45 minutes drive from my house, but we all have these lawns, right? We live in England, and we all have these columns, you know, like we live in colonial Europe. The columns are not supporting anything. They're just symbolic of something from the past, something obnoxious. And the lawn is you know, just a terrible eco-death place, symbolizing private property, you know, because of the stately home in England, like has a great big void space, like a moat made of grass in front of it. And then, you know, because this is a democracy, everybody has to have one. Or maybe it's a republic, yeah. It's not very democratic yet. America's an interesting place to be doing this lecture about history, because in some senses, America, it doesn't exist yet, right? Because of slavery. It's a country that, it's an idea about a country, but it doesn't really, it's not really there yet. You know, all people are created equal. Pull the other one, as they say in England, it's got bells on. So studying history is actually studying what's happening now. And what's happening now is a series of like overlapping explosions, like the Anthropocene, like the Big Bang, like me brushing my teeth in the morning. You know, all these things are kind of movements or explosions or ripples. They're moving. Yeah. The present moment is not a little dot on a line, right? The present moment is just a kind of tool that enables you to, the concept of present moment is a tool, right? What's really the case are these explosions, and then the present moment is there for you to do something with, right? Like, so say you're an electron, your little time frame has to be femtoseconds, right? Or say you're a business person from the 1500s in Europe, then you want to colonize the Spice Islands, you know, the spice race. You want to create maybe 6 months is your time frame. So you have to create debt and credit, and you have to create perspective geometry to do the mapping. So you have to be able to kind of look around the corner of the future a little bit to see where you're going around the Cape of Good Hope. And then you have a kind of a 6 month time frame there. So the present moment is this arbitrarily scalable thing. And what we're really looking at when we're looking at everything is the past. It's still happening now, right? Like that's the definition of the past in a way, that all the traumas that have not yet been resolved. And even in a way, a glass is a kind of a trauma. I don't know, because I don't know about, I'm not a piece of glass, so I don't know, but the glass got blown from some melted glass, or it got shaped in a mold, and the shaping and the molding, in a way, is the thing that happened to this glass, the thing that happened to the sand, without it willing it, it just happened to it, right? So in a way, like everything around you is greater and lesser amounts of trauma, and explosions that haven't yet been digested, haven't yet been assimilated. That's the other reason to study history, right? To figure out the most traumatic aspects of our world, how they still affect us, right? How to get them to not affect us, or how to change them. How do you do the changing? Well, you know, not everything is the past. Although everything you can see is the past, everything isn't the past, because the past is the appearance, right? There's a great word for that in science. It's data, right? But data just means everything that was given in Latin. And, you know, that can come in the form of things that can be measured in science, right? So, you know, speed, momentum, electron spin, right? That's data, length, you know, but also data like, it reminds me of my grandmother. You know, it's very hard for me to enjoy on a Tuesday. That's also data. So data is not necessarily scientific. It's just everything that has been given, you know, and looking at everything that has been given without too much of a prejudice about what you're seeing is the modern approach, right? Because we now know that a fact is an interpretation of data. That's just basically science, right? There's nothing postmodern about that, but we've all agreed that the thing in itself is inaccessible. And this is the object-oriented ontology point, but it's also the science point and the Kantian point, right? Because not only is, you know, we're looking at the past here, right? You're looking at this top was given to me. It is literally data. It was given to me last November. It was designed like this, that the past, right? I put it on at 6 a.m. today, that the past. My face is like a map of the acne that I had when I was 19 years old, right? And when you look at my face, you're looking at also the 19-year-old me, right? Juan Miro painted this at some point, you know, and nevertheless, it's now, right? It's now, my face is now, the Big Bang is now. But who is this Tim Morton guy? What is this painting? What does it really mean, right? The meaning of a thing, or the being of a thing, or the essence of a thing is actually the future. Yeah, that's what we call the future. And the future, in a funny way, is overlaps the past without touching it. You know, like it looks like it crosses it like a chiasmus, but actually, when you look at it this way, it's not touching. The past and the future are fundamentally different. Data and the things that the data are about are fundamentally different. And that's why you can have scientific progress, and that's why you can have different interpretations of the same historical facts. Because funnily enough, although it's invisible, the future is just as real as the past, and the future is the possibility that things can be different, right? And we're at this moment where we do have a very firm choice between inviting a different kind of future and repeating the past. And in particular, this is because of the industrial capitalism that has to do with a certain kind of automation of a certain kind of algorithm that has to do with slavery. And so I would argue that if we want the future to be different from the past, and we should, because if it's the same, then we will have mass extinction, right? Then we should examine history and strongly change or eliminate the capitalism as part of the project. I think that's kind of related to what we're talking about today quite strongly. In the name of life, life is interesting because life is also about the past and the future, right? Like life is a way in which my body maintains itself. It reverses entropy. It's not true that time is always going like this. If you're a physicist, you'll know that time is jiggling. It's going backwards and forwards, actually, and it averages out to going this way at our scale. But there's a part of the universe at our scale which is actually telling us that the universe is not mechanical. It's called us. Life is a place in the universe which is saying something true about the universe, which is that this is a quantum universe. You know, you can have random genetic mutation because we live in a quantum universe, because in a quantum universe, you can have random numbers that are truly random, not pretending to be random, that actually you could predict what they were if you had enough computing power. You really can't predict, even if you have the most powerful computer in the universe, a quantum generated random number. What does it mean? It means the future is different. You can't know in advance what the number will be. Therefore, the future can be different from the past. And this is a very encouraging thing to know, you know. To some large extent, the future is infinite in that for that reason. It's not just something you can predict. And the more you work with it as something that you can predict in social space, the more, in a way, you are eating the future with a certain idea of the past. So here's another way in which history is profoundly important, because history allows for thinking which lubricates the past and allows things to be different. Where are we going to find the future? Well, obviously, we're going to find it in the past. Like, look around you. Where else are we going to find the gateway to a different world? We're going to find it in the past, right? The meaning is in the future, but we can only find it in these little scraps of past that we have around us. If, on the other hand, we think that the meaning is somewhere underneath the past or inside the scraps, that there is something inherently buried inside the data, then I'm afraid then we move towards fascism, right? The fascism is sort of claiming that the past is sort of great, yeah, to use the MAGA phrase, and there's something inside of it that's sort of meaningful and rich, and we can find it, right? There's something inside this symbol, this Nazi symbol, which I'm going to, you know, I have to make other people wear it, right? Because actually, I know there's nothing behind it. I'm back here in my head. I just have to force everybody else to enjoy it. No, the real meaningfulness is in the future. It's not in the past. And the past was never great. Otherwise, things wouldn't look the way they do. You know, even just small things going wrong is an indication that the past wasn't any good. So thank you very much for listening to this overview, and deeply touched by you guys having me out, and I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit later. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for this moment that was destabilizing in terms of like temporal framework. It's it's great to think if we're in the future or in the past now. And actually, one of the things that I was thinking about during your talk was that, in a way, what you're describing as the moment when the Anthropocene would have started, no matter what the date is, because there's plenty of historians here who are going to debate about what would be the actual original date. But could we say that, you know, something happened in the past, and that very past makes that the future is coming to us, in the sense that the past that we had of industrialization is going to wait in such a way that it's going to condition in some fashion the future that is coming. So in a way that the future would be coming to us. How would you react to a statement like that?
Thank you very much. And again, as I said a minute ago, or maybe it was 2 days ago, I can't remember anymore. Thank you for laughing. I'm very touched to be here, and it's very nice to actually be at a history one. I actually think not if we don't want it to. The reason this is called Hell on Earth is because there is a very stark choice right now, and you know, in the name of fomenting the second coming of Jesus Christ, many people who live in the south of the USA who are never going to watch a film like my friend Adam McKay's film, Don't Look Up. No, they're just never going to watch it, right? And in the name of the second coming, they're going to allow, actually want, Earth to burn on fire, right? So that the real reality can be revealed, you know. And it is a kind of Platonism, which is a kind of nihilism, you know, where this world that we're in right now is just a bad photocopy of the future. Now, that's actually, in a way, that's not the future. That's just the past, almost kind of mechanically repeating itself through the actions and wishes and ideology of these evangelical Christians and so on. They are literally wanting to bring about hell on earth in the name of heaven. And I don't know about you, but personally, I would much rather be, at this point in my life, an angelic demon rather than a demonic angel. And there's way too many demonic angels, if you see what I mean, in our world, you know. So I don't think it's inevitable. I just think that it's but I think it's, you know, it's predictable given what we know, right? And so the interesting thing is we know this stuff, but why? How come we can't do something about it in the USA? You know, one of the issues is that on the left there is not enough attention to how to talk to everybody who doesn't believe it yet. You know, everybody who believes about global warming action, believe me, you know, that we are fully paid up, you know, and all that, but we don't matter yet because there's not enough of us. So we need to get the people who actually don't think they care or they don't know, you know.
That's a very impressive. Alors, I had never thought of a distinction between evil angel and angelic demon. That's a pretty strong point. Maybe, I'm sure that there are maybe reactions in the room. Est-ce que vous voulez poser des questions à Timothy Morton? Grégory?
Yes. Thanks so much, Tim, for this. Thanks so much, Tim, for your team. I was a bit surprised with this couple between past and future, and I wonder where is our present and how it was reframed. I mean, the new situation is that for the first time, the future is not, perhaps as you said, in front of us, but is on our back. Because what we did in the past design our future in our back. So how do you address the difficult question of, putting together the political question of time, as you said, and the scientific question of time and historicity? How is it possible to have an intelligibility of history, a new type of intelligibility of history, able to address, the political issues that you identified? And if we think back to some difficult period of time in the 30s, for example, where historians were confronted to the Nazi or to the difficulty in Europe, they were at the same time the feeling that it was not possible to change the present, but the only thing that we could do, it was to build an intelligibility of time, to have to build a new future after. That was kind of a tragedy of history that was there. And I wonder if you feel the same way today.
Not at all. I want to stress that my talk was not about inevitability in any sense. That is sort of an ideological construct. In fact, very much the opposite. Tragedy is a small, slightly distorted region of comedy space. Comedy is ontologically deeper than tragedy, and I can prove it to you if you've got 5 hours. But roughly, if you see one person going through the motions, like the priest in the Catholic Mass, trying to get away from their fate, only to find that they made it worse by trying to get away, it's called Oedipus, right? If, on the other hand, you see 8 people doing it, and you identify with those people because you're laughing at them and you realize you're one of these idiots too, it's called Fawlty Towers or Monty Python, right? Tragedy is a small little piece of comedy space that's been distorted, and really, ontologically, reality is a comedy. That doesn't mean it's always great, but a comedy is a place where all the different emotions are kind of allowed, like in a kind of nice ecosystem, all the different life forms are allowed, and they're not really canceling each other out too much. They're not fighting each other too much, right? So you can have jealousy and despair and joy and hope and ridiculousness and wonder and all these different feelings, right? Like in a late Shakespeare play, yeah? And very, very much human beings working on global warming must try super hard to extricate themselves from tragedy space and try to find a way to do this action with some kind of a smile. You know, otherwise there is this horrible sense of inevitability that it's all going to go wrong, and then we're part of the problem. Because actually, you know, although this is a huge, massive thing that we've never encountered before, we actually are obliged morally and politically to make this into the most attractive possible problem to solve ever on the planet, right? The biggest possible problem has to be the sexiest possible thing to solve. Solving it has to be the most amazing thing you ever thought of in your life, that gets you out of bed and makes you feel amazing. And why? You know, why is it the sexiest problem? Because in a way, you know, this biosphere isn't inevitable either. The evolution and life are not inevitable. They're all about some kind of random, truly creative aspect of the universe, right? And that's a reason to protect life, is that actually it's totally contingent. You know, there's no reason why I look like this. It's all just to do with random mutation. If Apple was in charge of my ears, they would be little tiny pinpricks, and they would be much more efficient that way. And I would be some kind of cylinder, you know, really smooth. You know, thank you for laughing. It's very nice for my ego to see the laughing there, you know. And you know, some female something thought that this was sexy, like some 100,000 years ago. I don't know, right? And for no reason. Sexual display never has anything to do with proving that you've got great chemicals or that you can survive things or whatever. It's just to do with completely open-ended, aka queer, female desire without any kind of mating or reproductive goal in mind, right? So that's another reason to care for planet Earth, I feel. It's made out of, unless you're a bacteria who likes to clone, it's basically made out of female desire. And it arose completely contingently as a kind of amazing creative accident. And this is saying something very beautiful about our universe, which is that we don't live in a mechanism that we can actually precisely predict all the time. Life is saying something true about the universe, which is that actually we live in a quantum universe where a genuinely different future is possible. And that's the reason to care, you know. And it's a wonderful reason, you know. It's the reason why you care about art. There's no actual reason at all, right? Like there's no real reason why you love somebody. If you can find the reason why you love someone, it's probably over, you know. If you can think, oh well, it's probably this bit of your eyebrow, you know, it's probably over then, right?
No, it's thank you. It's indeed like we're thinking of I mean, in a way, you're looking for maybe looking for a very reason for life to sustain is not a necessity, in the sense that there's a desire that goes on its own. Do we have other questions? Oui, au fond.
Oh, it's just to make a joke. I find you're very handsome and sexy, and the way you play the bad guy for me is really sexy and makes climate change sexy for me, because there is Timothy Morton. I say, yeah, it's trendy, sexy, because there is this guy in it. But it might be part of my generation, you know. It might be something, you know, because I'm 53. And so what is to be sexy for the new generation? What does that mean to bring climate change as an issue sexy? And now, not a joke, but can we understand an hyper object with an hyper speech? I mean, how can we do to make understand the stakes without simplifying? How can we, if we want to respect the size of the problem, we will be into complexity, quantum, many things, but then we lose also some audience. It's very difficult to make sexy something very complex. How can we do that with creating more simple things? It's really a challenge.
It's really a challenge, and you know what really would be sexy for younger people than me. I'm 54 years old, right? And what would be sexy for young people is if older people like me and you could get a clue and like actually do the stuff that poor Greta Thunberg has been doing by herself with other Extinction Rebellion people for a few years, right? Kids shouldn't be in charge of this. My son is I just took him to school. He's 13 years old. My daughter's 18 years old. And Generation Z, as they call them over here, they know, right? They know something, we need to do something, right? And they are so oppressed by this. So what would be truly sexy for them is if grown-ups actually started to take responsibility for the world that they have nearly destroyed for the kids, actually. So I want to let the kids off the hook. Now, what I've done, actually, is I've created a charitable foundation called the Cool America Foundation, right? And the purpose of this foundation is to educate people like me and you in this age where we're powerful and we have some money and we can vote, right, to care about it, you know? And the only educational materials we have are the word cool and the word America, and the idea of putting these two words together. And I'll just show you one of the things that we're making so far. We're going to make a little ad, basically, that's going to appeal to people in the South, you know, who are voters, who actually, you know, they don't know yet, right? They don't understand yet. But I think they will understand if, for example, you see, so here's our, let me just see if I can find it here. Here's the, I think cool is bigger than great, don't you? Cool is better than great. Great is like you have to become like a big red balloon and maybe you pop. But cool is this fantastic deflation. It doesn't require any effort. And that's why, of course, it was a mode of African-American resistance to authority when it first developed, right, in the 20s and 30s. The concept of cool is, I'm going to wear sunglasses on the indoors because I'm not going to give a single inch to the dominator people about how I feel, right? But by the 70s, which is when many of these guys who were voting for Trump were growing up and listening to maybe Rush, Tom Sawyer, I think maybe, they were able to say the word cool, you know. And so my idea is, don't talk to people about global warming at all. Get me on the television and get me to talk to people about coolness and say the word cool and the word America over and over and over again, because basically it's cool, you know, it's good to be cool. Cool is great, right? Cool America. Cool. You don't want to convince anybody for one more second with global warming facts, because you've already lost if you're trying to convince people and make them believe something. And then they have this idea that they have to swap their belief for your belief, and you've already lost. They put these poor scientists, you know, and journalists on the TV. They should put me on the TV, right? So I've got this agent now who's going to try to get me on Fox, right? And I'm going to go on Tucker Carlson. And I'm first thing I'm going to say is, why can we alienate people so much, Tucker?
We have to screen the Tucker Carlson versus Timothy Morton. That's supposed to be entertaining. So we're going to thank you for this very cool discussion that was illuminating. And we're going to find you again during the roundtable. Again, huge thank you. And so we see you a bit later during the roundtable. Thank you, Tim.